Hey everyone, welcome to Live with CherylPiper.com. And today is Wednesday, and you guys know what that means. It's interview day. Yay! So I have a really special guest for you today. Hope you guys saw the promos. And, just a little story before we move into our interview. I met Sandra about a year ago. We both went through a course together in conversational intelligence, and we ended up kind of in a mastermind group together, and we really just hit it off. And I've had many, many great chats with her, and I just thought she would be a great guest to bring on. As you know, we're always talking here about moving into our best self and stepping into life and stepping into courage and moving into change and having a wonderful life. So I want to go ahead and introduce my guest. I'll bring her up from the lobby. Her name is Sandra Pate. And she is, I'm just going to read this because it's just so interesting. She has had transitioned from law student to international fashion model to Hollywood television executive, and now to a bishop's wife. And she lives in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And so she is coming up from the lobby, and let's welcome Sandra. Hey, Sandra.
Hi, good afternoon, Cheryl. It's so wonderful to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I just was going to say to my audience, but I thought I'd wait until you came on. You're in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm sure the weather's nice there. I'm in the middle of a nor'easter snowstorm.
Well, we'll play for you. It's probably 80 degrees today, but we won't rub that in, will we?
Since yesterday morning here, and yes, so we yes, but it's nice and cozy in here. Very grateful for that. So just wanted to introduce you to our audience, and on your website, it states that you're a testimony coach, and
yes.
I thought that would be an interesting place to start. I really want you to talk about your background and, kind of what brought you to this space of being a testimony coach, but maybe just speaking a little bit on what that is for those in our audience who perhaps have never heard of that term before.
Well, good. Thank you for the opportunity. Yes, I've been 19 years in full-time ministry as a result of marrying my husband. And I made a sharp transition from corporate America, where I worked on hundreds of episodes of primetime sitcoms and dramas. And then all of a sudden, I'm the pastor's wife. I was ordained and licensed minister in 2004. And one thing that I realized, one of the most liberating things that we have is our story, our testimony. And people get stuck sometimes in telling it chronologically or telling it from a point of view. Some people don't even want to tell their story because it's painful. There's suffering involved, and there's just things that we'd rather not talk about. Amen. But as a testimony coach, I help people reframe, refocus, look at what has actually happened in their life and embrace the goodness and the beauty of still being here, still having the opportunity to change things, still having the opportunity to love more, still having the opportunity to forgive. Those are all good things that put us on a trajectory for a more exciting path in life. Life is a journey. It's not a destination ultimately. So as a testimony coach, I work with people to really take those things out of the story that don't serve their growth. Take those things or look at things differently. I deal with people who've been molested, sex trafficked, and I look at, you don't have to tell everything to everybody. People who have experienced addiction, it's not important the drugs that you used, or people who have had, problems with men. all kinds of problems women experience. I primarily deal with women. And what I help them to see is, at some point, as crazy as this may sound right now, it's all good. Because what you went through that may have been truly painful and created suffering for you can help somebody else get past it, get through it. And I believe, certainly in church culture, we're all here to serve one another. So it's our testimony that is our personal proof of survival, of strength, of courage, of overcoming fear. It's our story and how we tell it that truly can encourage our own heart and spirit every day. So what I do as a testimony coach in a nutshell is liberate the story.
Oh, that's fantastic. And, that is so interesting that we're talking about, courage and fear. I heard that mentioned a few times.
Yes.
And because that was my subject on Monday when I did, because Mondays I usually just pick a subject and then I'll talk for about 15 minutes on that subject. And my subject this past Monday was stepping into courage. And that's what I was talking about, was how that fear can just be overpowering. It can paralyze you. And of course, I talked a bit about the conversational IQ as far as the neuroscience and explaining what's going on there. But that whole thing about just digging down inside and having that courage, because courage doesn't mean that you're not afraid. Courage means that you're afraid and you're going to step into it anyway. You're going to find that strength. So,
I come, from the perspective of embrace it, to give you the energy to keep going. That's all that really matters in life, is that we keep moving forward, no matter what the challenge is. And when there's need for rest or to take a time out to just collect where you are, then stop for a moment and look and be sensitive to everything around you that you can use to embrace change. When I transitioned from being a law student to a fashion model, that was crazy. Everyone said I was too old. I would never work. And I decided, where are all the fashion models in America? The best place to work is New York City. So I literally left school, went to New York City. And what's amazing, Cheryl, is in 4 days, I was hired by one of the top fashion houses, Oscar de la Renta.
I saw that. Yes. Wow.
Yeah. To tell people that, even established fashion models. Is there some static? Is something happening?
Yeah, it's
I think it might be
processing. It could just be the pull on your computer, on the processor. So it's okay. It'll be fine. This is live. That's what we love about live.
Technology, we love it. This is the power of that transition. It's not that I woke up one day or decided that I would be a fashion model. It's people were coming to me over a period of time asking me, had I ever modeled, would I consider modeling or whatever. But I didn't take it seriously because I was a student and I was on this trajectory to becoming a lawyer. And then I realized when I got into law school in the third year, this isn't fun. I wanted something for me that was just more exciting. And so the final person came to me and said, you should be a model. I dismissed it again, but a tragedy in my family sent me home. And while I was there, I wound up working for a very famous fashion photographer. And when he said it, because of his experience and his lifelong dedication to his craft and being very well known, I thought I should take it seriously. So, of course, I said to him, well, if you take my picture, it might help. And it did. Because, life is not just where you are. You've got to be present in the moment where you are. You've got to have a good sense of where you're going or where you think you want to go, because things change. Things change all the time. But it is a lot of who you know and who crosses your path. So when this photographer made that suggestion to me and took my picture, it opened doors. But going to New York with no money, no place to live, and winding up working for a top fashion house still amazes me. And you know, in the language of the church, it's the favor of God. It's being able to embrace all that you are right there. It started with one woman coming up to me and asking me the question, and she asked, "Are you a fashion model?" And I said yes. I couldn't. I haven't modeled yet. I'm thinking about it. I have some pictures taken by this famous guy. I could have said a whole lot. I just said yes. And she wrote down a name and a phone number to call. Well, you can imagine my surprise when I called that number and they answered the phone, Oscar de la Renta. And I asked for the name of the man. She just had a first name, David. I asked for David. They said, hold on. David said, oh, yeah, Diane called me about you. Can you come over right now? And I did. And they hired me to be a house model on the spot. It wasn't about how long I modeled. It wasn't even about the pictures from the famous photographer. It was just being in the right place and the right time. Absolutely. Now, I know people say, well, you know, that kind of thing may not happen for me. Well, maybe you haven't been open to that type of thing happening for you. Exactly. Maybe you haven't been expecting wonderful things to happen for you. And that's the change that you can make, is how you see yourself. And you are the star of your story, how you want to tell your story. You can start writing right now or today the whole story you want to represent who you are. No one knows the future, but you can create the future for yourself. I knew when I said yes to being a fashion model. I'd been a student of international relations, political science. I studied Spanish, economics. But for me, being able to travel the world as a model was the best way to experience international relations.
I'm sure. I saw you lived in London. You lived in Milan. Woo.
Yes. Yes. Auckland, New Zealand, Sydney, Australia. Yes, I've been blessed to visit 6 continents. You know, live, what does live mean? Means to me, you know, the grocery store, you know, where to get your hair and your nails done or whatever, you know, the church to go to. To me, that means live in a city. And I've been in 17 of those. And you can imagine, Cheryl, the change from Los Angeles, where after I retired from modeling, 4 years I worked. Paid off my school loans, thought I was doing fine. But, you know, the world was getting a little more dangerous for someone out there traveling by themselves. And so I just decided to be grateful that nothing bad had really happened and that, you know, I was back home and my dad challenged me to get a real job. I was like, that was a fake job. So because I live near 20th Century Fox Studios, I went there. And in 2 years, I was truly blessed to go from a temporary job, which should have lasted 2 weeks, to an executive for Fox Broadcasting Company. And I worked on, you know, a lot of television shows. And that's where I really learned the importance of the story and telling a story. My job involved reading scripts. I read scripts every day, all day long. And, you know, scripts went to being filmed, and because the network buys the show from the studio, we had input into what the story or the casting or the direction or, you know, all the things that a buyer can influence, and that's practically everything, right? To tell the best story. Now, I'm not saying I'm proud of everything that went on Fox Broadcasting at the time, but, you know, I was truly blessed to be in there at the time when African American shows were really prominent on the Fox network. So I worked on I now look at them compared to a lot of things on television, you know, some pretty sweet comedies, Martin, Living Single, and
they're all great. Yeah.
Yeah, good stories with, you know, about just coming of age, young people coming of age. And then I worked on the first drama from its inception that featured an African American and a Latino lead called New York Undercover. So some of the other stuff that just didn't quite fit my sensibility, I prayed my way past that. It's like, oh, I can't do that. And, you know, that's important in telling a story, is to know who you really are.
Well, that you're saying it right there. That's it. And what I think is amazing is that maybe it wasn't everything that you wanted to do there, but you, like you said, you learned the story and you learned the importance of the story, which brings you into what you're doing now and helping people with understanding that.
That's right. So, now the focus of what I do is we're in a culture today so chaotic, so confusing, and we really minimize our faith. We talk about all the problems. We don't sometimes see ourselves as the solution in just small ways. I hear people talk about, oh, there's no more prayer in schools. Well, why don't you go to a school and pray? It's that simple. If you want to see that change in schools, go change it today. As a pastor, and certainly, with the responsibility my husband has, we can't be everything to everyone in the congregation. So it's equipping people who want to be there in the hospitals praying for people, who want to be out counseling people who are experiencing domestic violence and need shelter, who want to be in the jail houses helping people who are incarcerated just make it through to the next day. I mean, each of us can play a role, but whatever role you choose to play, you can write it in your story. Mm-hmm. There's a scripture that says, write the vision down and make it plain, so those that read it can run with it. Most of us can't even run with our own life story because we don't tell it. We don't know how to tell it. Well, I just want to encourage everyone today that a good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. A good story has compelling characters. Generally, there's the protagonist and the antagonist. The good guy, the hero, that should always be you. In your story, you're the hero, always.
Absolutely.
And those things that you bump up against, whether it's people, whether it's circumstance, that you bump up against that change you, that perfect you, that develop you, that teach you.
Absolutely.
And those are the things you want to remember. Things that you may think were important 10 years ago aren't important anymore. They don't serve you and they don't serve your story. You have the power to change it. This is not a linear chronological experience we live. There's so many things that impact us spiritually, financially, mentally, physically. So many people, talk about, oh, I have this goal. I need to lose 100 pounds. Well, why don't you start with a story where you start losing 1 pound, that goes to 5 pounds, that goes to 10 pounds. But underlying it is not that you just want to lose weight. Your story should envelop, why do you want to lose weight? Yeah. Some of the most compelling reasons to do anything is when you can craft your why. So why would you want to lose weight right now? Because you want to see your family grow up. You want to be at your grandchildren's wedding. You want to be stronger. You want to be healthier. That's so much more of a compelling part of your story than I just want to lose weight because I want to look better. That's okay. That's okay.
Would you mind if I throw something in here? Because you always inspire me when we talk. My brain just gets going. But that why is so important, because what we're talking about with that is we're talking about coming into a part of us that doesn't really understand language. This is emotional. And so when we can hit on that why, and it inspires us, because when we get inspired, then there's an ignition, like something ignites inside of us. Mm-hmm. There's a light that gets lit inside of us, and then we take the torch and run with it. And that's the difference between being inspired and being motivated. And
that's right. That's right. And, I want to give an example. For many years, I was very angry at my father. He traveled for his job. He wasn't there for, the violin recital or whatever. And, I just felt as I got older, he could be more selective about the things he chose to be at. But it seemed like he always chose his job over anything involving me. And so I had this latent anger, and, it made it hard to express myself with my dad. And I realized I was really looking for something from him that he couldn't really give, and something needed to change. Mm-hmm. The epiphany was, it wasn't him, it was me. Mm-hmm. I could change me. I couldn't change him. Yes. And one of the changes that I truly did in wisdom was I taught my dad to love me. I mean, I literally gave him lessons in how to love me. And my why was not even that I needed it so much, although I did, was that he valued and always cherished his relationship with my mother. And I got him to see how important, how valuable it would be for her to see us having a better relationship. He could embrace that.
That's beautiful.
He was excited about that. So I took me out of it, put my mom in it, and we both agreed we wanted to keep her happy. Our love for her wanted her to see us work together, at least talk civilly to one another and enjoy each other's time together. So I taught my dad to love. I taught my dad how when I came to my parents' house, I'm an adult now, but I told my dad if he should open the door, just open his arms. I would walk into his arms. And then when my mom would come and see that, it would make her happy. He said, you're right. Let's do it. So we started hugging. And from that, my dad got to a place where on the phone, he was able to end the conversation with, I love you. And I would say, I love you too, Dad. So that was very good. And then it gets better. My mother suddenly passed away, and I became a primary caregiver for my dad during this season of tremendous grief because my mother wasn't sick, didn't suffer. She just passed away. And so in caring for my dad, we both decided it was still important for the memory of my mother that we get along, that he allow me to help him, and that he receive it with grace and with love, and not, the ego of, I don't need your help, I can do that, but just thank you. I appreciate that. And by the time my dad passed away, we had a whole different relationship. But I realized underlying it all, it was important to me to honor my father. It was important to me to have great memories with my father. But most importantly to us, it was important that my mother be honored in what she wanted for her family. And it worked. So
that is a beautiful story. And what I'm feeling as I was listening to that is it almost seemed like that was one of your missions coming here to this physical life. That was one of your missions.
Yes.
To create that space for him to be able
right.
to love. In a way that was non-threatening, in a way that was just simply loving, kind, compassionate, and loving. That's beautiful.
Yes, because you know what I thought about, Cheryl, and it came to me that maybe he doesn't love the way I think he should because he doesn't know how. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes in the story, people accept far too much blame for things they had nothing to do with. Maybe that attack from that person came because they're mirroring something that was done to them. And you just were in their path. And it wasn't totally directed at you or something you did. It has to deal with how sick they are. And you can shift that story where you're not at fault. And you come to a place to see that. It wasn't me. It hurt me. But now what can I do with this pain? Mm-hmm. What can I do with how I suffered? Well, my answer to that is help somebody else.
Absolutely.
Help somebody else. Tell somebody else that you feel that you can reveal that part of you, which is so special and so precious, because some kind of way you learned how to keep going. Mm-hmm. So it's important that in that experience that you make that shift to see what was the best of all of this. what did I really learn? Maybe my parents yelled at me a lot, and now I don't want to be that kind of parent to my children. That's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a teacher there as well. I mean, all of these things are teachers to us. That's how I choose to view things. Moving through the lesson, and what gift did the lesson bring me that I help? Because once we move through, my whole thing is about forgiveness. I mean, this is what I do. I help people in that way. And when we move through to true forgiveness, then those lessons turn into wisdom, and we're able to share with others and help others that are perhaps in that situation now. And
exactly.
And that's the we're here to help each other.
That's it. And if we can go through life, some things we might not be ready to, uncover the whole story. We still need time to marinate, to really think about. The Bible speaks to renewing our mind, to come to a deeper understanding about what that lesson is, about how you can take the best part of it to move forward. So testimony coaching has been really amazing. With younger people, who feel so lost in this world. I have dealt with people who just thought the world ended after the election. And, it's not about the politics. It's about what's right for you. What is right? Not about who's right, but what's right for you. What works for you? And I think that all these things that are happening, all this technology, all this, social media, all these things we have are really tools to sharpen ourselves, to understand what's the best inside of me. What do I need to let go for the journey? And what do I need to just drop right now? Let it go. I did an illustration at a conference a couple weeks ago of I came out with a backpack. And in the backpack, I had these very heavy, really heavy rocks. Everyone could see it was heavy. And I asked people, I'd stop by a lady and say, could you reach in the backpack, help me lighten my load? Could you hand me a rock? And so, whenever the rock came out, I identified it. And the first rock, I said, this is family. Some of us are on a journey. And right now, the family we want to go with us doesn't want to go. They don't see things the way we see. We're at a loggerhead. I told this was a Christian audience. So I said, you're quoting scripture or they feel like you're badgering them, and just let them stay right where they are right now. If they want to catch up, they'll catch up, but you got to keep going. You can't allow what other people don't want for themselves to hinder your journey.
Absolutely.
So one of the rocks was the job. Some people come home, they complain every day about the job, won't do anything to change it, don't like the job, don't like the check, don't like anything about it. And, but I'm saying, start making an effort. The thing that is truly amazing about the time we're in is you can Google anything, everything you want, you can find it. How do I change my resume? How do I find a job? I'm over 50 years old. How do I find a job? Where are the suggestions? There's job skill surveys. There's all kinds of things on the internet. Start one day at a time. Do something. There are people who want to make radical job shifts. I don't think it gets any more radical than law school to fashion model, but, there are things, or, from Hollywood television executive to bishop's wife, those are pretty radical, but,
Well, you know what, Sandra, I know I'm looking at our time here and we're kind of coming up on it. And there's something I really did want to talk about before we end today. I want to talk about your book. You've got this book coming out. And I would love for you to share just some insights on that for the audience. Do you mind?
I do not mind. And my book is dealing with changing the perception of the past. And the story is a prominent American slave-owning family with great wealth, established a university. One of the family members took one of the African women off the plantation in one state, moved to another state with her, and loved her. And they had a child. And that child, at the death of his father, even though he was born in the legal state of slavery, that child came to own thousands of acres of land and became obviously a wealthy landowner as a black man in the deep South in the mid to late 1800s. And I now own some of that land. And I want to tell the story in, all that was going on in American history as a great love story, and how love always changes things. Love is the greatest weapon we have to change. And so I'm excited about it. I'm going to, cast it in what I feel in my spirit. And then I'm going to make a documentary of the actual facts of the story, so people know these people in history who chose against overwhelming odds and with much courage to truly love and to raise a family in love when society was not very accepting of those relationships. So things change.
They always do. They always do.
Yes.
And so will that be available on your website? Because I did put your website in the comment section before we started the broadcast, so people can, contact you via your website, if they want to talk to you about testimony coaching. But will there be a link on there when that book is available as well?
Yes, it will be. It will be. It will be. And I just finished another book that will be coming out this fall. That's a devotional that I'm part of writing with 6 other women, and I can't wait. I'll announce that as well. But that's at the publisher now, so that one will be coming first. And
well, you'll have to let us know so I can, push it out to everyone.
I will do that.
No, absolutely. And I wanted to share with you really quickly. I'm not sure if you saw this come across my Facebook feed or not, but I have put out a compassion challenge. It's called the Compassion Challenge.
Yes.
And invited everyone to do it. I would love to get 1 million people doing it. I'd love to see it pass on. It's a video that I created.
Okay.
It's about 45 seconds long. But what it is what I'm asking people to do for the Compassion Challenge is, for one day, I want you to choose someone that just pushes all your buttons.
Yes.
They just they just push all your buttons. And I want one day, just for one day, that you don't judge anything they say. Just don't bring judgment to it.
That's beautiful.
The only thing that's left when we don't bring judgment into the conversation is compassion. And therefore, at the end of the day, see how you feel about that person. And that's the Compassion Challenge. And so if you see it, please share it out. I would really try to get it out there, because we need compassion right now. We just need, the world needs it. We need it for each other, because we're all connected and we need to have it. Yes.
Anyone that's in your life, let's embrace them, that they're there for a reason.
Absolutely.
So, Absolutely.
Yes. Well, is there anything else you'd like to chat about, Sandra, before we wrap it up? And
Well, I read with that compassion to share that I have a cousin whose grandmother lived to be 112 years old. She was one of the oldest women in the world when she passed away, and she passed away with a big smile on her face. When she was 107, I asked her, what did she want me to tell people about how she was living so long? And she said, tell them about the 3 F's. And I said, what are the 3 F's? She said, faith. You've got to believe in something. Anchor who you are in what you believe. She said, I chose and I choose for all of my children to believe in God in the name of Jesus Christ. Then she said, the second F is family. She said, those are the people God gave you. And in the family, God gave you friends, and he may have given you some enemies. Love them all. And then that takes compassion. And then the third F, she said, eat more fresh fruit.
That's great. Well, Sandra, I'm going to go ahead and thank you so much for being on the show today.
I'm so honored to have been here with you, Cheryl. Thank you.
I'd love to have you back whenever your book gets released.
Anytime.
Back and talk about that. I'm going to take you back down to the lobby and just take the show out, but wait for me there, and we'll chat then.
That sounds good. Thank you, and God bless everyone who's listening.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in for our broadcast today. Wow, that was a great interview with Sandra. I am just so happy that she's a part of my life now. And, I'm able to chat with her because she has such inspiration. So just taking our show out today, I really want to, if you're watching on the replay, please make the comments on the comment section because I answer the comments, whether it's, the live broadcast or the replay. And please share out for anybody that you think could really use the message that was in this broadcast today. Again, I'm Cheryl Piper, CherylPiper.com. And I really like to just throw out really quickly before we go, because I have to talk about this and I didn't do that. Our TriStateWomanRetreats.com. This is for anybody that's in that tri-state area of South Central Pennsylvania, Maryland, or the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia. Check out TriStateWomanRetreats.com. It's a new program that I'm offering. So I am going to say thank you. I will see you on Monday, and I haven't picked a subject yet for this Monday. You can send me some messages and we'll see, but I will let you know what it's going to be about. So take care and have a wonderful week.